Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Artsbeat TV and Radio, coming to you from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. And today we're zooming all the way down to Hartford, Connecticut to chat with the good people of TheatreWorks. And on air with us right now is Eric Ort, who's one of the artistic folk at TheatreWorks, and hopefully joining us in a bit will be Taneisha Duggan, his associate. Eric, can you hear us?
I can, Mark.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am doing very well.
So,
and how are you?
I am doing fine. We're in March, and spring is around the corner. Taneisha's supposed to join us, but before she does, why don't you give us a preview of the show that's currently streaming at TheatreWorks called Mr. Parent?
Yeah, I'd be so happy to do that. So, Mr. Parent is a one-man show, and it is an autobiographical piece. Inspired by the life and stories of Maurice Parent, who is an actor who moved to the Boston area and to basically pay his rent. He took a job as a Boston public school teacher, and the show is his reflections on being a teacher and the tension between trying to be a teacher and being an artist, and what it ultimately really beautifully exposes in the midst of these really funny stories and these heartbreaking stories is really the deep inequities in the American public education system.
Now, I have a question. This is a play that's in development, and is it a streamed reading of the play, or is it a fully produced type of play?
Yeah, so this play is part of what we're calling our workshop series. So it is a play that is still in development, and it will feel very much like a reading of the play. So we've got Maurice is using his script, and it's sitting there on a music stand, just as if you walked into a rehearsal studio. And we've captured that moment.
Yeah, and he didn't write the play, but somebody else wrote his story and directed it. Is that right?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah, and he tells this story, far better than I do. But it is inspired by his stories. It was written by Melinda Lopez, who's also a Boston-based playwright and actor, and it was conceived and directed by Megan Sandberg-Zekian.
And we've just been joined by Taneisha Duggan. Good morning, Taneisha.
Good morning.
It's good to see you.
You too.
Eric was just filling us in a little bit about Mr. Parent. You guys have really had to completely change course this year in terms of what you had planned to present with the pandemic and not being able to use that beautifully newly renovated theater space on Pearl Street. And you came up with a new concept, and that is of membership, where instead of people subscribing to 6 plays, they took a monthly membership out, and every month TheatreWorks would present something new, whether it was a play in development like Mr. Parent, or it was a play filmed on the stage like Christmas on the Rocks, or the incredible Russian Troll Farm, which really put TheatreWorks on the map nationally, if not internationally. How has it been for both of you navigating the change?
Well, it's been a lot of work doubling our season. Let's just throw that out there. But when we made the decision back in July to not retreat from presenting and in fact expanding our season, I think, and Tia, I hope you'd agree, but I'd love to hear what you have to say. I found it incredibly energizing, because all of a sudden we had that many more opportunities to hear from different artists, to get different artists to join our family, to have that many more stories on our stage too.
I definitely, feel like the opportunity that this time of rethinking has given us is a sort of push off the ledge of innovation, right? I think in a lot of ways, both, producing and, as you said, Mark, bringing something like Russian Troll Farm, which has exploded our profile, were things that I think would have been harder to convince ourselves to do a year ago, right? So I think that the kind of freedom that the pandemic and the sort of forced reconsideration of how we do things has been really fruitful for us. And I think part of that is, an agility that's always been a part of TheatreWorks' DNA, from our start, and a willingness to try some things new, but also recognizing, one of the conversations we had early on in July was like the decision that we make of how we move forward is not just about us, right? And Eric, alluded to, it's not an easy feat to move from 6 projects to something monthly. But it was really important to us to sort of think about how we were supporting and giving a vision and a model to our industry, right? To sort of say, hey guys, we can do this. And it's been really exciting to see other folks come on board, right? Like we were one of the first to say we're going to produce, we're going to make something happen. It's been really exciting to see radio plays and to see the kind of audio work that's really exploded around us. So it's been a gift, a challenge, but I mean, I think I'm a parent, so I always look at it through that lens, right? It's like parenting. It's challenging, but there's also a lot of beauty and abundance in doing it.
And you've also had the opportunity to introduce numerous voices and perspectives, from the new plays that are in development to some of the plays that were existing scripts that you've brought to the stage, for like the Who and the What. So that many new voices that are not getting heard enough or seen enough in theater are getting put out there. In January, you took a pause after the events that took place at the Capitol building to reimagine, rethink, and recharge. What came of that? What new philosophies or new initiatives do you think will come out of that time that you guys sat back and decided to reevaluate where you were going?
I think it's important to sort of frame our pause as a continuation of work we started in the summer. Right? We've been doing anti-racism work, and we've been looking at our impacts since the summer, since the passing of George Floyd, and we, responded to that radically different than our colleagues who took a pause at that moment. We decided to continue on to sort of use that incident as a propeller towards something else. And I think, looking at the events of the 6th and recognizing that everybody was still soldiering on, and we needed also to take some time to really focus in on our anti-racism work. It was an opportunity for us to go, wait, hold on a second. Yes, we had started this work in the summer, as a result of George Floyd and our colleagues, our BIPOC colleagues of We See You White American Theater. But let's, as a predominantly white institution, take some time to really look at what the world is looking like around us. Yes, take some time to reflect, right? To take a break to reflect, because it's hard to think outside of your day-to-day tasks of what you're doing. And for us, we're looking at how we do things, right? So much anti-racism work in many places is about looking at things through the lens of Black and Brown people, but we are a predominantly white institution. And so for us, it's looking at the ways in which an anti-racist lens actually affects the people that are in our institution. So from things like work-life balance, to the way that we interact with each other, to a kind of transparency and care at how we approach not just each other, but the work. And then, of course, the things that I think people always assume when you say anti-racism work, or you say that is how we're bringing people of different perspectives into what we do intimately, right? Not just in the ways that are the most comfortable, right? Which this is probably overstating, bringing something to the stage is easier to do. It's easier to bring a BIPOC playwright to our purview than it is to really embed a BIPOC person into the way that we work, right? Into having those bodies and those voices a part of what we do on a daily basis. So that's sort of my expressions of how we came out of the pause. Eric, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I think what I'd fundamentally say is the pause, and it was really so, I think, well named, because it was a recognition that business as usual is a trap, and we had to break that business as usual to have some space to at least begin to reimagine how we can do that business.
Well, let me ask a question. I mean, you're trying, the theater community are trying to make sure that voices are heard, emulating from the stage, that there is a racially sensitive group of creative people on stage, backstage, designing, front of house and all that. And the third component being the audience, making all of this accessible and inclusive to the people that are walking in the door to see the performances, or in this case, clicking to stream the performances. How will you be able to gauge, as you guys are moving forward, the impact of what you're having? Are there benchmarks that you're hoping to meet? Are you looking for anecdotal responses from people? How will you know the work that you're doing is meeting the goals that you guys are setting for yourselves?
So I'm gonna pull you back again, and while yes, the product that we produce and everything that goes around it is the thing that we do, it really starts with the institution and the people inside of it. If we are choosing to really focus on that work, understanding that the off gas of that work will result in more different perspectives coming to the table in terms of selections, different folks feeling welcomed and willing to step in the door. But there's a lot of work. A lot of times institutions rush towards let's pick a bunch of plays that have people of color in it. Let's pick a bunch of playwrights that are people of color or from different backgrounds than the white norm, right? And let's start some initiatives around bringing Black and Brown and differently abled people into the space, right? And those are great tasks, but if they're not rooted in an environment that actually believes in that work and it's not just a checklist, they don't actually last. So we're very honest about the fact that we are at the beginning stages of that you will see quick changes, like, a season like the one we just had, where there are a lot of voices, where, something like doing an ASL performance that my dear friend, brother, and colleague, Eric Ort, helmed, right? Those kinds of conversations are brand new to us. And those came out of internal work. But I will repeat, it came out of internal work. It wasn't what are we going to do to sort of check off the box that looks and sounds and feels like anti-racism? We go, what are we going to do to be different? And in doing that, the results come from that. Yeah. I know it's not the most satisfying answer, because I think people do want to hear, like, next season we're going to do 6 plays about this, and we're going to, do some events that are about, bringing in other people. But we have also found, having done things like that in the past, we're going to do an event around this kind of person or that kind of community, that it is not an authentic ask, right? That it is not coming from we understand who you are, or want to understand who you are, and so we're inviting you here. We're learning that we have to actually go out to other people, right? That we've got to go into other communities and make ourselves welcome there before we can begin to ask.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And as you're going out there and you're bringing this new vision and working on the vision internally and bringing it forth, how are these potential audiences or new audiences responding that you can tell at this point? I mean, obviously, I mean, I haven't seen this Mr. Parent yet, but I've seen just about everything else this year that you've had the opportunity to stream. One thing that you've not sacrificed is a commitment to presenting high quality work, rather than going after the lowest common denominator, saying, well, we can accomplish A, B, and C by putting this play out there. The plays that are being written, even if they're in development, of the highest quality, nothing's been diminished on that level, and nothing's been diminished on the level of making good theater. But how can you tell if you're making the impact on these audiences?
Well, that is the big question, right? I think, well, first of all, thank you for saying that, because we believe deeply in the projects that we're working on this year, and wouldn't be doing them if we didn't believe deeply in them. And I'll also say that one of the benefits of selecting the kinds of projects we have is that the artists that we're working with have brought really wonderful other artists with them to work on the projects too, which is so satisfying and a real gift. But it's to the practical question of who's watching. It's a challenge in the streaming world to really have a clear sense of that. We do know, and I'll focus for just a moment on what Taneisha made reference to with our beginning ASL streaming, is that's a new community. The deaf community is a new community for us to reach out to. And at least tentatively, anecdotally, we feel like we've made a first step there. And that's incredibly satisfying.
Yeah, because I know that there are occasionally signed performances of live theater, or there were pre-pandemic, but my assumption would be that there's not enough of it, and there's not enough audience development to let people that are hearing impaired know that there are theater opportunities out there for them to try. In the same way that there are other audiences that you're trying to reach, but with the creative work that you're putting on stage, but finding them in the community and reaching out to them and letting them know that you're there is also a challenge in today's media world that doesn't have the space or the time to push out every single project that's happening into every venue. So as things are evolving, the play on stage now is Mr. Parent. What are some of the other things that are in development that you can talk about at this point?
Well, one of the projects, and since I'm jumping in, we're not talking chronologically. In our workshop series, the final piece in our workshop series is a play that is called Moonlighters, and we're very happy to be part of the developmental process of that. It's written by a Hartford playwright, Sin Martinez, and Taneisha really brought her to our attention, and we're really thrilled about that. It's a futuristic workplace comedy, and this one is really in its early stages relative to the other ones we've done so far, and we're really excited about the chance to give a playwright to not only make space, but try and make resources available to her to develop the piece.
Yeah, let me ask Taneisha, direct a question to Taneisha. This workshop series where the plays are in development, that you're finding these scripts or artists that have this potential to have a play produced, and you're doing a reading of the play. What happens after for example, Mr. Parent? After Mr. Parent ends its run at TheaterWorks, what happens next?
That's a good question. I'm actually going to answer that question not talking about Mr. Parent, but talking about another workshop project that we're doing, just called Proximity by Harrison David Rivers, which is the first commission that we've, official commission. We have worked with playwrights and
explain what a commission is.
Yes, I will. So we have worked with playwrights in the past before on new works, but we've never properly commissioned a playwright, which basically means I'm asking you, Mr. or Ms. Playwright, to write a play for our theater, and we will be the first to have the opportunity to produce it as a full production. We will be the first. We will have the opportunity to produce it as a world premiere, and that's the first time we've done this kind of formally. And that's Harrison David Rivers, and we're really excited by that. And I think the hope is, again, this is our first commission, so we'll see how it goes. But I think our hope with the workshops is, one, to give artists an opportunity, a home, a place of refuge, and a moment to work on pieces that they're really interested in working on. And then I think there is a hope on our end that these are projects that we can produce more fully in the future. We talked a lot about recession planning. A lot of theaters coming out of 2008 sort of made some choices about what projects they were going to produce, and they were mostly tied to big names or Broadway projects. And I think for us, the workshop series really offers us an opportunity to kick it old school, to sort of do things the way regional theaters used to do things, which is that we were the incubators of our region's best talent, and those projects that were really extraordinary moved to Broadway, as opposed to the way that the train has been moving since the recession, which is that Broadway projects would come back to regional stages to give that market a chance to see something that they might not travel to New York for. I don't think that is leaving altogether from regional theater stages, but I do think this opportunity to really cultivate and nurture and support both the artists that are in our markets, and also artists that we're really excited by and want to build relationship with, and hopefully bring stories to our audiences that they may not see otherwise, is a different way of working. Is like I said, we're kicking it old school. We're going back to the roots of regional theater, and that's really exciting for us.
So you commission this play and it gets performed maybe in a workshop. What happens after that? Does it go back to the drawing boards and get revamped based upon the reaction that the audiences have? Is it possible that you might produce it or another theater might produce it? What happens to it?
So that's the thing about a commission, is that when you commission, you have the right of first refusal on a project. So you get to say after the workshop reading, yes, I want to continue to develop and support this project with the goal of bringing it to the stage. And what that means from the workshop reading to the stage could be really different depending on the play and the playwright. It could be, yes, I learned a lot of things in that workshop, and so I want to go back and rewrite. It could be, this play is exactly where I want it to be. The next phase is understanding how it lives in 3D. That next step is really individual. But the commission thing, the thing that's really specific about a commission is that the theater that commissions the work gets the opportunity to decide first whether or not they're going to put it on the stage. And that's cool, because sometimes, some of the works that we're doing in workshop are not commissioned. So the work that we have, given artists space for could very well show up on stage in another place. So it's nice when you're providing resource to be able to bring it to full fruition. But yeah, for us, it's a combination of many things. It's about just leaving space to let people do what they need to do, and then sometimes it's commission with the goal of putting it on the stage in the next season or two.
How long does it take for a commission? You talk to a playwright and you say, we'd like to have you do a play, and how long does it take from that point to the point that it might be ready for its first workshop production? Is it something that happens quickly, or does it depend on the particular play?
I think it depends on the particular institution and the playwright, but most often a commission is within a year, right? We started this conversation with Harrison back in the fall. Our first workshop read will be in April. So that's a pretty quick turnaround for a first draft. But I think, like everybody, everybody works best around a deadline. So sometimes, the seed of the idea of I want to work with you is planted long before, you decide you're going to put a workshop date on the calendar. But yeah, for us, it was the fall to the spring. So a little over half a year.
That's terrific. Did somebody help you fund this commission, or did you? Will this be in the future? If you want to commission a work, do you have to go out and find the money first to commission, or do you find the play first and then go after the funders? How does that work?
So in our case, we built it into our budget this year. So there's no, funder of the commission per se, but Bank of America is a sponsor of our workshop series. So they sponsor all of these projects for this year. But now, this is Taneisha now talking, not Taneisha as an avatar of TheaterWorks, but Taneisha as her own administrator and artist. I think there's something really important about theaters beginning to think about working as social enterprises and not as nonprofits. Social enterprise being a for-profit model that is mission-based. And I say that because, you may be less willing to go out and commission a playwright if you have to go find the funder to support it first. And I think it's really important for theaters, not just TheaterWorks, but theaters around the country, to really re-engage with the importance of commissioning work as a core piece of our business, and figuring out how your economic models work to support that, whether it's through ticket sales, whether it's through other activities that you do to fund it. It's really important to me to sort of engage in the conversation around, this is what we do. This is the widget we make plays, right? And so we need to make it a part of our value system, which comes out of what we budget for, that says this is really important, that bringing a play to life from its birth to its final real life production is important to us. So I encourage theaters, as hard as it is, but there's no time like now to really consider your economic model and go, okay, this is really important to me. This is what we're going to do. And whatever funders come to your organization as a part of what you do is fantastic, but you're not holding hostage commissioning to, some big corporation or private funder to give you the means to do so.
We've only got a couple of minutes here, so Eric will let you give us a quick update of what's coming in the next month or so, and this membership model. If somebody wants to become a member or learn more about TheaterWorks, how do they do that?
Absolutely. Well, let's start with that. If somebody wants to become a member of TheaterWorks, they can, of course, go to our website, which is twhartford.org. And there's the opportunity to get a membership. I think there's still an opportunity to get grab the whole rest of our season. I think that's still there. Certainly you could call our box office and they will work something out with you, or buy month by month membership. And so that's your resource there. The exciting thing is there are a bunch of plays to watch. Starting right now with Mr. Parent, which begins this Sunday. We're also, by virtue of the fact that we were to have produced Fun Home this year, but unfortunately the rights for streaming it were pulled from us because they're planning a film. We were able to pivot with one of our partners for Russian Troll Farm and present their production of Schoolgirls, or the African Mean Girl play, which is being produced by Theater Squared in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And so that is open to our members. Immediately after that, we are streaming The Sound Inside, which just wrapped filming in our space, live and in person with no audience. And that will stream in April. In May, we will have the Proximity Workshop streaming. In June, we'll have the workshop of Moonlighters. In late July, we're sort of doubling up our July, what would have been our July stream in August. And we've got two shows there. A play called Walden, which is in its regional premiere at TheaterWorks.
And Mark, you have to have us come back because we've got some exciting news to share about that one that we can't share today.
We're out of time, but folks, go to twhartford.org to learn more about TheaterWorks. Taneisha Duggan and Eric Ort, thanks for joining us today. And thanks also for joining us on short notice because the two of our great TheaterWorks friends came on board last minute when somebody else had to cancel. I'm so appreciative of that. And I will have you on again in the spring because there's so much going on at TheaterWorks that we need to let people know about. So we're going to take a quick break, acknowledge underwriters, and we'll be back with more Artsbeat in a couple of minutes. Don't go away.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Westfield Bank. For more than 160 years, Westfield Bank has been an important community presence and commercial leader in the Pioneer Valley. With convenient full banking services in Westfield, West Springfield, East Longmeadow, Agawam, Feeding Hills, Springfield, Southwick, as well as Enfield and Granby, Connecticut, visit us on the web at westfieldbank.org.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Barnes & Noble College Bookstore in the Ely Campus Center, offering Westfield State t-shirts, sweatshirts, and gift merchandise, all of your academic needs, and offering textbook materials in new, used, ebook, and rental formats. Available at the bookstore on campus or online at westfieldState.bncollege.com.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach, your host. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. You're listening to us from Studio 120, either on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 or 89.5 FM WSKB. Our guest for the next half hour is Kate Mcguire, who's the artistic director and CEO of the Berkshire Theater Group, which operates in Stockbridge and Pittsfield, Massachusetts. And Kate, I'm really, glad of always to have you on, but B, to know that you're going to tell us about a live spring, summer music series that's about to kick off as soon as the snow goes away. So how are you, Kate?
I'm good. We're at it again, Mark. And look at you on Broadway there.
Yeah, I just threw up a little Broadway background. I'm the only one in Times Square today.
Fabulous.
So the last time we got a chance to chat was at Holiday Memories, which that I saw Thanksgiving weekend in a cold, shivering Unicorn Theater outside kind of thing. And I've got to say, you gave me a Berkshire Theater Group hat to wear, which has been seen all over the streets of Longmeadow as I walk daily. But now that as I look outside and the snow's starting to go away, I'm thinking summer. So what's happening this spring and summer that you can share at this point?
Oh, well, we're plotting again. And yes, we're putting up tents. We will be back very soon. We're starting with a number of performances outdoors at the Colonial under a tent. And we have a fabulous lineup, I think. We've got Harvest and Rust, which is a tribute to Neil Diamond, and that's on May the 1st. So we officially start outdoors on May 1st. We go on to Ryan Montblow, who is an extraordinary artist. That's May 8th. Whiskey Treaty Roadshow on the 15th of May, Taking It to the Streets, which is the Doobie Brothers tribute show concert, and that is May 22nd. An Evening with Chris Thiele on May 29th. And we wind up with Tom Rush on June the 5th. Each performer is graciously doing 2 performances on those Saturdays.
And it's under a tent. Tickets are on sale for all of them at this point.
correct?
And berkshiretheatergroup.org for tickets. How do you, I know that you're not ready or to really talk about the summer season, so to speak, and we don't, none of us really know how many people will be vaccinated and how much you could do indoors in your theaters or outdoors. But how is the summer season, without giving any of it away? How are you progressing at this point with all the unknowns?
We should have an announcement ready for you before the end of March, before the end of this month, Mark.
So,
We're looking to once again performing under the tent and outdoors in Stockbridge at this point for the summer months.
and I know that it's been a long time since you've been really able to put that season down on paper. Has what your programming changed in light of the pandemic in terms of the types of shows you could do in a tent versus on stage?
Well, the situation has changed dramatically. And in part, it's because we're outdoors. But in large part, it's because we want to make sure that we keep everyone safe. And so, what does safety mean now? Safety means social distancing. In some, like last summer, it meant masks in some cases. It means certain kinds of musicals. So, the kind of show that we can, the kind of production, plays, musicals that we can present, yes, we're in a very different world. It was, you saw it on full display with Godspell last summer and then Holiday Memories in December. The actors were distanced. The emotional life of what they were showing had to be so much more powerful, didn't it? Because they were distanced and they needed to get those emotions across from, about who their characters were and reach an audience that in most cases was at least 10, sometimes 25 feet away in the case of a musical.
It's funny, though. I've seen two productions of Holiday Memories, the one that you guys did over the holidays this year, and one that must have been done 20 years ago at Stage West, both directed by Eric Hill. And I really didn't notice the distance between the actors on stage or the distance between the audience and the actors. Maybe because I was so theater starved at that point that those details wouldn't have, caught my eye, or maybe because it worked despite the distancing. And I'm sure that Eric, in directing it, had to reconceive it in terms of what he might have done had it been in an intimate space like the Unicorn.
I'm glad you didn't throw in the third possibility, which is he was so numb with the cold you didn't recognize.
Well, that was a different thing. But when you get outfitted with special hats, and you were warned ahead of time to bring the blankets, and as I went with a friend of mine who was brave enough to sit outside as we were driving back, goes, if somebody had given us tickets to see the Patriots at Gillette Stadium, we would have been bundled up in the same blankets with the same flasks hidden away to keep warm. It was no different, really.
That was the whole idea, Mark, was that, we're hardy New Englanders, especially. We go outdoors to watch football games. And so when I asked the group of actors and designers, Eric, if they would be up for this, their response was, it didn't even take a second to say yes. And in part, that is because we're so hungry to be back in the presence of live arts. And the actors, I remember one Saturday, it was a couple of weeks after you came, and the temperature projected for that Saturday evening was going to be 13. And I called the stage manager and said, Jason, can you check in with these actors and make sure they want to go on? And he said, well, I'll check in with them, but I know that their answer is going to be yes. They're just so anxious to get back out there. And after the production closed, which was a sellout every night to all 25 people that could be in attendance. But after it closed, I remember talking to Corinna May, the actress who played Sook, dear Sook. And she said, in my wildest dreams, I can't imagine ever saying, yes, to performing in 20-degree, 13-degree weather, outdoors, in the snow sometimes, in the sleet. I just could never have imagined it, but it was the most exhilarating and wonderful experience of my life.
And did the audiences stick with it? I mean, the night that I went, nobody minded the cold. I mean, they all just were riveted to what was happening in the theater. So, I mean, and I was so thrilled to have the chance to experience live theater after months of not seeing any. I would have sat through it if it had been torrentially raining in 13 degrees.
That's good to know. The audiences sat there. They all came back for the second act and seemed grateful and moved, as you say. I think they came prepared. They were bundled up, and those that weren't bundled up enough, we gave them hats or blankets, whatever was necessary, filled their flasks, perhaps. But I also think that the show itself was one about surviving hardship. The play was set in the 30s at a very different time, in a place that people were surviving difficult times and were understanding the essence of Truman Capote's story is about this relationship that becomes more important and carries these two individuals through their lives, especially Truman Capote, whose life was very complicated, as we know, and difficult. And that relationship that he formed with Sook, that one winter especially, carried him through the rest of his life.
A beautiful play, and it's not done enough. I certainly hope that other theaters, either you guys will bring it back or other theaters will consider doing it, because it really is just a terrific work. One of the things that made Berkshire Theater Group stand out, that Berkshire Theater and Barrington Stage were the first two theaters to work out a way to present plays during the summer last year with the help of Actors Equity and their approval of the performances, along with the state and its CDC guidelines in the early days of the pandemic. And I guess as a result of that, a family of a patron of yours who had passed away donated a significant amount of money to Berkshire Theater Group to make it through the winter and go into the spring. It certainly made headlines. How did you know the family before they made the donation?
No, we did not know the family before the donation. We had a lot of angels last summer that helped us through. Many board members, many donors stepped up to make sure that we got through the summer. And then when we were performing Godspell, we got a call from a couple named Mary Chris and Alan Bassman. And they asked what it would mean to support our getting through until this spring. And they asked for what would the number be in terms of dollars. And I gave them a number that would get us through till the end of the year, and then another number that would get us through into the spring. And Mary Chris said that her brother, Phil Gross, was in a position to be able to help us, that he was wanting to support us and Barrington Stage for having done the work that we did at a time of such difficulty and enlivening our community. The arts had meant a lot in their lives. Their mother had taken them to theater when they were young, and so to be able to do something in their mother's honor meant a lot. And Phil said, the Berkshires is your community, to his sister. What would you like? And we met with them. We provided some support materials, and lo and behold, a gift of $1 million and a challenge gift of $350,000, which we have met, came to us and is indeed getting us through the winter months.
So you were able, with their largesse and their concern, you were able to keep your staff on board and keep the theaters heated and all of that good stuff, plus do a holiday memories and work towards this without laying anybody off.
We've been able to keep the whole staff on through all of this. In the first instance, we were able to keep everyone on because of a PPP loan from the government. There were some staff members that worked at half salary for a few weeks. A few of us did that, but for the most part, the staff, the year-round staff has held together. And honestly, Mark, without the full-time staff working together, I don't know that we would have been able to accomplish all that we've accomplished.
I think that, that's just phenomenal.
Well, it's not just about my saying, this is what I want to do, and there not being a team around to talk and discuss things with. You know, right before I came on this call, I got off our Wednesday morning call, which generally goes for a minimum of 2 hours. And we go through detail by detail, not only how do we produce a production, but how do we produce a production in these times? And it is so wonderful that the vaccines are coming out and coming out at the rate they are. Thank goodness to Joe Biden, who said that, you know, we'll have vaccines for everyone in this country by the end of May. They may not be in everyone's arms, but there'll be enough of a supply. That's a game changer for us. And the hope that we could probably get back indoors by the fall, it makes all the difference. I mean, the other difficulty in all of this, Mark, as you know, is that it's great that we can put on a play for 25 people in the month of December and perform for 3 weekends or 4 weekends, whatever it was that the schedule held. And we were certainly able and mindful of making sure that we had tickets set aside for those that couldn't afford. But with only 25 seats, we're charging a higher ticket price for those that can come and not giving or supplying nearly enough tickets to those that cannot afford to come to the theater. And I worry not only about artists that haven't been able to perform in so long, and many of them turning to other businesses or just giving up in an industry that's already difficult. But I also worry about the audiences that we're losing, those that can't afford to come at the prices that we're having to charge at this point. And so, you know, when we do get back, how much do we have to pick up and move forward with? And hopefully the federal government will be there to supply some support for us and our own state agencies as well.
But I would also hope that so many businesses, and people don't realize this, so many businesses and industries around depend upon the theaters for their own survival, the restaurants, the gift shops. I mean, the Berkshires, Pittsfield and Stockbridge are two cities and towns that depend upon tourism. And Berkshire Theater Group is one of the institutions that brings the tourists in. So how many of these cafes and restaurants and bars are struggling, and they need to come back as well? So it's a big picture.
It's a huge picture. The numbers of restaurants that are struggling is enormous. Hotels, the entire hospitality industry here is suffering to a great degree. And we're just all looking forward. It's not just us, it's in the entire world. How many systems have been broken, or the revelation of what was already broken is in front of us? The education system, social justice, the justice system. I mean, so much has been revealed. There's so much work to do. And hopefully we can all come together to create new systems, more equitable systems in our society.
You know, there's definitely challenges. On the other hand, I personally, I feel I am so glad that I've been able to get through this entire pandemic, partly because of the arts. Even though I'm not getting a chance to review plays the way I normally would, I am getting a chance to keep the theater and arts industry alive through programs like Artsbeat, but I'm also getting to watch a lot of good stuff that's being streamed. And I hope that other people who are watching streamed theater will jump at the chance to go to live theater as soon as it's made available again, whether it's outdoors under a tent or inside in a theater.
You know, a couple of years ago, we were fortunate to have the great Hershey Felder perform with us at the Colonial Theater. It was just so splendid. And we developed a very nice relationship with Hershey. And since that time, he's done some incredible performances for us online. We've had a series of performances that he streams from his villa in Florence, of all places to be through all of this, a villa in Florence. Perhaps he'll invite us when all of this is over.
I hope so, Kate. I hope so. My bag is packed and ready to go.
I will tell her.
I was gonna bring Hershey up because he's done. He generally performed in several regional theaters around, including he was on your roster of performances at the Colonial. He did shows at Hartford Stage, and he primarily does these one-person shows talking about a musician or impersonating, let's say, George Gershwin or Irving Berlin or Tchaikovsky, and their lives through their music. And he's an extraordinary pianist and actor. And he developed this entire series, but he's doing it from Florence, and they're being streamed, but he's doing it to benefit the theater companies. So when you go to stream a performance by Hershey Felder and you purchase your ticket through Berkshire Theater Group, for example, Berkshire Theater Group gets a portion of the proceeds, which is so important right now to the survival of the theaters that helped him build his career going from theater to theater.
That's right. We have one coming up on March 14th, which is Puccini. I think it'll be splendid. Hershey all of a sudden opens the door to the villa, and there is Puccini. And then...
but he also has Nathan Gunn, the opera star, the hunk of all singers, is one of his guests on that. So
that's right.
And he did one on Sholem Aleichem recently.
That was most recent. It was extraordinary.
Yeah.
And on May 16th, we've got Rachmaninoff in Anna and Sergei, live from Florence with Hershey Felder. I mean, he's just put together an incredible series and works so hard so that they're sophisticated. It's wonderful storytelling and splendid. I mean, the best music.
Yeah, and you can get tickets. All of them are on sale right now at Berkshire Theater Group, berkshiretheatergroup.org.
That it's really been a boost for us, and we're also part of the 10 by 10 festival, which has always been live, but this year we pulled together some of the students that we work with. We have an enormous education program. In the summer months, we've always presented a community production directed by our own Travis Daly, the Pied Piper of Berkshire County. And we were not able to do one of our community productions last year. We missed our kids a lot. We have been able to do virtual work with them in the schools. But most recently, Travis brought together a group of kids. They all wrote a one-act play, and those are being performed online as well. And to have our kids sort of back with us, if you will, it's wonderful and necessary for us.
Will you be able to go into the schools come fall? I mean, if things go as projected, most of the school programs have been remote at this point, and I know you've done a lot of remote kind of work, but do you anticipate in the fall possibly taking a show into the schools?
I'm hopeful that we will be able to be in the schools with the kids working on our playwriting program. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to bring our tour out. I know at this point that the programs where we bus kids to us during the school day will not happen in the first semester, but hopefully we'll get back to that again in January. So I think inch by inch, we will get there again. But it's all part of the new lessons in patience, right?
Yeah. Last year, when you and I had talked and you were announcing the season, and I think we talked at the very early stages of the pandemic where we all thought things might close down for a couple of weeks. You were talking about the need to, provide theater that would uplift people in tough times and things like that. Do you think your vision for programming has changed over the course of the last year when we've gone through some extraordinarily challenging times?
I think so. I do think that the pieces need to be about connecting. So I remember a couple of weeks ago, I sat down and read Our Town. And at the end, I was uncontrollably weeping. And I had thought about doing a reading. And when I finished crying, I thought, I can't go through this. There's so much grief right now in the world, that there is a part of me, and this makes me feel very old, but there's a part of me that really does want to be in a space where I can feel hope or I can be inspired to action. And sitting in that graveyard in New Hampshire was just too much for me, honestly. So I do think that our artistic sensibilities have been impacted. I think we've all been impacted by what we saw in terms of social justice movements. I don't even know how we have been impacted yet by what happened on January 6th at that insurrection in Washington, D.C. I'm sure that there are playwrights and composers that are out there creating what's to come in the next decade that will reflect what we've all gone through in very profound ways.
After we're all vaccinated and we can all go out again, what is the one thing that you've missed the most that you can't wait to do when they say, "Okay, Kate, take off the mask. You can go wherever you like." What's number one on your?
I really just want to walk down the street and hug everyone I see. I just miss hugging people. I can't wait to see you and give you a big hug.
I miss that too.
I mean, that seems so simple, doesn't it? And last year, if you had asked me, I probably would have said, I want to go to the movies, but I just want to be able to hold on to people that I haven't been able to embrace more than anything. And I feel fortunate because in my bubble, we have bubbles at work. And so there's my bubble with my assistant, Brian, and our general manager, Corey, and our executive director, Nick Paleologus. So I've got a bubble there that I've been able to maintain all winter. I certainly have the bubble of our family. So Eric and my daughter is Adora and her family who is here. I feel fortunate for that. But I think I'm going to walk into Stop and Shop when this is over and hug all these dear people that have been at the register that greet me with a wipe when I go in. I mean, they're just being there has been, I wanted to bring them all Christmas presents and give them a hug. Maybe I'll do that this year.
Maybe that's a great goal. We're out of time, Kate, but my first goal when the pandemic is over and all that is you and I can meet like in Lee and just give each other a big hug on the street and stop
and then
traffic.
You can get back on the highway.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Thanks for joining us. We've been chatting with Kate Mcguire, who's the CEO and Artistic Director of Berkshire Theater Group. If you want to learn what's upcoming there, including their spring concert series, and soon they'll announce their summer theater, berkshiretheatergroup.org. This wraps up another edition of Artsbeat. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. If you missed a portion of today's program or you want to relive it, it's going to be stored at WSKB Community Radio's YouTube page. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next Friday with another edition of Artsbeat.
Thanks, Mark.
Oh, dream maker, you heartbreaker, wherever you're going, I'm going your way. Two drifters off to see the world. There's such a lot of world to see. We're after the same rainbow's end, waiting round the bend. My huckleberry